I spent a lot of time building out my camera setup. The camera, the lenses, microphone, and tripod. The whole thing. But when I started thinking about which pieces of tech I actually use the most, the answer isn't any of that. Instead, there's 4 things. My iPhone 16 Pro, DJI Osmo Mobile 8 with the tracking module, the Comica VM40, and the Lexar Professional Go SSD. They're not the most expensive pieces of gear that I own, but they've become a regular part of every video that I make. And after using them for a while, I noticed that they all solve a similar problem. When people talk about creator gear, the conversation usually ends up around image quality. So, better cameras, sharper lenses, higher bitrate, and most of the time, that's not what slows me down. The thing that slows me down is everything that happens before I record. Setting things up, moving equipment around, checking framing, managing files. The small things don't seem like a big deal until they start stacking on top of each other. And that's where these products fit in my workflow. The first one is my iPhone 16 Pro. This probably gets more use than any other camera that I own. Not because I'm replacing my camera with my phone, they're completely different tools. But I've noticed a lot of the footage starts here. Sometimes it's behind the scenes clips, sometimes it's B-roll, and sometimes it's just a shot that wasn't planned for the day. The thing about carrying a dedicated camera is it's usually a decision. You have to go get it, you have to bring it with you, and you have to feel like whatever you're about to shoot is worth pulling it out. A phone doesn't really work like that. It's just part of the day. And because of that, I end up recording things I probably would have skipped otherwise. When I look through my old projects, there's a surprising number of clips that only exist because I happen to have my phone on me in that moment. That got me thinking why certain products end up becoming part of my workflow, while others don't. Most of the time, it has little to do with their specs. It's usually because they make things somewhat easier or remove a step entirely. The next one is the DJI Osmo Mobile 8. More specifically, the one with a tracking module, because filming yourself can be surprisingly tedious. You set up a shot, you walk into frame, review it, adjust it, try again. It's not difficult, but it breaks your momentum. The tracking module handles all of that. Once it's locked onto you, it does a pretty good job at keeping you framed while you're moving around. For some people filming alone, that changes the experience quite a bit. Instead of consistently checking whether your shot works, it focuses on whatever you're trying to record. After using it for a while, just setting up a camera on a tripod feels a little strange, other than these talking heads. None of those individual adjustments saves a huge amount of time, but they don't really happen in isolation. They're repeated over and over throughout a project, and even those small interruptions become part of the workflow. Then there's the Comica VM40, my audio, which is probably the easiest thing to overlook until you hear a recording that doesn't sound right. I've been using the Comica VM40 because it's simple. It connects quickly, it doesn't take too much setup, and it gives me a consistent audio whenever I'm filming indoors or outdoors. I don't spend too much time thinking about microphones when I'm recording, and that's exactly how I'd prefer it. The fewer decisions I have to make while filming, the better. At this point, none of these products sound particularly exciting. There's no groundbreaking feature here, there's no huge technological leap, and honestly, it's probably why they've stuck around. They've solved everyday problems instead of reinventing my workflow. The last thing is the Lexar Go Professional SSD. Storage is one of those things that stays invisible until suddenly it isn't. You finish filming, you need to move footage, then you realize that your storage is full, and now you have to reorganize files instead of editing. The Lexar drive has become my default option because it's small enough where I could just throw into a bag and forget about it, which is pretty much all I want from my storage. I don't want to think about it. I just want it to be available when it's time to offload footage. A typical shoot involves all 4 of these. The iPhone handles the quick clips, behind the scenes, and anything that happens unexpectedly. The Osmo helps with the movement and talking head. And the VM40 handles audio. The Lexar drive is usually waiting for me once everything is finished. None of these products completely changes the way I make videos, but together they remove a small amount of obstacles throughout the process. After putting this list together, I realized all 4 products earn their place for the same reason. Not because they have the best specs, not because they're the newest. They become part of the workflow because they simplify something that I already do regularly. And over time, that matters more than I originally thought it would. So when people ask what tech I use the most, this is usually where my mind goes. Not the camera, not the lens, not the gear that gets the most attention. It's the stuff that quietly ends up being useful every time I film. And when I start looking at products I've kept using year after year, they all tend to have one thing in common. They make it easier to start creating. And as always, learn, create, and share.